Hello, welcome to the Ben Gregersen Show. Tonight we have Lance Earl with us. What seat are you running for?
House of Representatives.
House of Representatives.
28B.
28B.
That's
Awesome.
right.
Well, I'm happy to have you on here tonight.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
I was just hoping that maybe you could, I guess, explain to the folks out there what made you decide that you wanted to run.
You know, I still don't want to run, if you want to know the truth. I'm a small business owner. I like what I do. But as a political columnist, I have very often written that the time has come for people to stand up or shut up. And so when I was contacted and asked to do this, I realized that the time had come for me to stand up or shut up. And the truth is, we have serious problems in our country right now. And in my opinion, the biggest are that in Boise and in Washington, nobody seems to understand that we have a Constitution and that we're supposed to live by that Constitution. Everybody seems to think that it's optional anymore, and that troubles me deeply.
Yeah, I know what you mean, where it just seems like people pick and choose where they want to follow the Constitution and where they don't.
Actually, I don't think they're even trying to follow the Constitution anymore. I don't think there's any picking and choosing. I think it's just being ignored for the most part.
Well, I think that's true. There isn't, not as far as I can tell, there's not tons of picking and choosing. I think some people choose to follow it. You know, some people are pro Second Amendment, but then on some other issue, they're not really, they're not really supporting the Constitution. They're just, they're supporting the big government program that really isn't constitutional, because that is something that should be left to the states. Because the 10th Amendment, both you and I know about that, but that basically says that the Constitution delegates certain powers to the federal government, and any powers that are not delegated to the federal government are reserved for the states and the American people.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And what troubles me, Ben, honestly, is I have watched our state with absolute regularity. The federal government passes something that is not constitutional, and we know it's not constitutional because it's not enumerated in those list of powers. And then the state comes to Idaho and says, look, if we give you X million dollars, will you endorse and bring our program on board and force it on the people in Idaho? And this is what's happening, and quite frankly, we're all shackled, The state of Idaho has shackled us with federal nonsense when, in fact, they should be fighting to remove it and to free us from those shackles.
Absolutely, and I think that's something that should have happened on the Idaho State Exchange, Healthcare Exchange. That instead of digging us deeper into those federal shackles like you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
or instead of getting us out of that, they kind of dug us deeper in it, I think.
They honestly did. In fact, a part of my campaign is to just simply ask the question: show me in the Constitution where the federal government has the right to make my health care decisions. Show me in the Constitution where the federal government has the right to mandate commerce and force everybody in the country to buy products from the private sector. Show me again how that law can remain constitutional when President Obama uses etch-a-sketch legislation. His executive orders. He just flips the etch-a-sketch over and shakes it up, and then he redraws Obamacare and forces it on us.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is so unconstitutional on so many fronts, and our legislators, who's speaking against that in the state? Anybody you can think of?
No.
Me either. I can't think of anyone.
Me neither. And I don't know. To me, the states priorities are all screwy. Because it seems like, you know, in one area, you know, as far as, I mean, you heard about that they nullified federal gun laws, right?
Yeah.
That the governor signed that. It's like he gets it there. But for some reason, when it comes to federal overreach, when it comes to health care, he doesn't get it.
Well,
here we're nullifying guns, you know, because it's a federal overreach, you know, to the you know, is a violation of the Constitution. But then when it comes to health care, which is just as much of a violation of the Constitution as far as I'm concerned, we're not willing to nullify that.
you know, that's one thing that's confusing about the state, and especially Butch Otter.
Yeah.
I mean, for crying out loud, he's a blade of grass. If the wind is from the north, he points south. No, actually, we ought to say if the wind is from the right, he points left. He's left wing. If the wind's from the left, he points to the right. And you can't figure him out. I can't figure him out. He's screwy as all get out.
Yeah, you know, you kind of wonder where it's just not where it's not clicking. Like, you know, where's the brain not connecting? You know? Because, I mean, a common sense thinking person would think, well, if we can nullify this gun bill, we can nullify the health care thing too.
And Common Core, and on it goes. Yeah, it's nuts. But, you know, their approach to the state's approach to these things drives me crazy. Like, if you read the exchange bill, have you had a chance to read that?
No.
Okay.
But
This is the craziness about this. The federal government came and said, okay, look, Idaho, we're going to give you, how many $1 million was it? Do you remember? I don't remember. 40-something million, I think. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. We're going to give you all this money if you will create a healthcare exchange. And so then you read the first paragraph of that bill, and it says, in order to exercise Idaho sovereignty against the federal government, we decided to create an exchange. But in creating an exchange, they did exactly what the federal government mandated. Yeah. So how is that sovereignty? And then you look at their website for Common Core.
Yeah.
And it essentially says the same thing. They came to the state and they said, look, if you want money from the federal government, you have to enact Common Core or it's going to go away. And so on their website it says, what does it say? It says that, again, the state is exercising the right to do their own thing, and so they say that the Common Core is actually a state program, even though it was mandated and they accepted a bribe from the federal government to put it in. It's not a state program. We are capitulating to unconstitutional federal dictate, all for the sake of a paycheck.
Well, and I could be wrong about this, but I've heard that, I don't know, have you heard of Agenda 21?
Oh, yeah.
I've heard that Common Core is part of that. That the United Nations, they're actually funding local governments, meaning local school districts, mayors, to enact their agenda.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
So, yeah, that's basically what it is Agenda 21. And actually, during the Republican convention in 2012, you know, Mitt Romney's convention, when they set up the Republican platform, basically there, and they all vote on it. In that platform, it said that Agenda 21 was a threat to this country, and that Republicans needed to oppose that. And this Common Core thing, from what I understand, is that it has something to do with Agenda 21, and that's why some of these guys claim that it started at the local level.
Well, it very well could have, but ultimately, I mean, even if they're not, really linked, they're still linked because it's all about control. Agenda 21 would deprive us of our private property, tell us how we can use it and how we can't. Now, I own 80 acres out in Rockland. I'm the one that pays the taxes on that. Don't you think I had to have some say in how they use it? But Agenda 21 wants to take so much of our country and turn it back into this natural stuff and say man can't go there because everybody knows that man's not natural.
Yeah.
I mean, when were we originally manufactured, and by who? We're not natural on this planet. That's nuts. But you can't go there. You can't use it because, heaven forbid that you step on a green toad and screw up his life. But it's control. It's all control, and it's all linked to that. Common Core is about control. It takes away our rights to raise our children and to educate them. And in fact, the new sexual, what's it called? You need to Google this. Everybody at home, you need to write this down. Get your pen. National Sexuality Education Standards. Google that. This is a new section of Common Core that was just released, and it's all about control. But this starts in kindergarten, and it has requirements for every stage through graduation. And in kindergarten, our children are already being indoctrinated and desensitized to the whole homosexual thing. Now, everybody wants to call me an enemy to the homosexual. I'm not. If you want to be homosexual, be homosexual. But if you want to be homosexual and force it on me and on my family, you can't do that, because that takes away our parental rights to raise our children. It takes away our it sacrifices our most sacredly held principles. And we, as parents, have to have the right to teach our children what we believe.
Well, and ultimately, that's what it comes down to, is there's just certain things that schools shouldn't be teaching kids. They shouldn't be involved in. There are certain things like that, sexual identity and who you love and that kind of thing. That is really something that should be left to parents. It should never be the government's job to really get involved in that. I don't know, that just bothers me anyways, that one day I'm going to have kids and they're going to be going to school, and learning that they could love whoever they want. They could decide to be female if they don't like being male.
Sure. Sure.
That whole, I don't know. I just think that is something that, it's sketchy, and it's kind of creepy, really.
Well, what we need to do, everybody wants to argue, is Common Core good? Is Common Core bad? Will it work? Will it not work? And I don't doubt that there are some good things in Common Core. There probably are. But here's the question. But we're asking the wrong questions. We're having the wrong conversation. The first conversation we need to have is Common Core constitutional? And so we go right back to Article 1, Section 8, the enumerated powers of government, and say, what does it say about education? Well, it says nothing about education, which means that educating our children is something that needs to happen in the states, and really in the people, because I think the people are the most important part of the whole Constitution, because what are the three biggest words on the Constitution?
We the people.
Now, there's two possibilities here. They either started writing really big and said, uh-oh, we don't have enough paper, let's switch to a smaller font, or they made we the people big for a reason so we could understand. And I'm thinking that might be the reason, the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that's where education belongs. So really, even our Board of Education, that stupid federal agency, has no business even being in existence. It needs to be at a state level, and really even at a community level, where we decide how to educate our children.
Mm-hmm. That's really the great thing. You mentioned we the people. That's really the great thing about the Constitution, is really the Constitution empowers the American people, and we're actually given power over our government. It's not the other way around.
But we've let it somersault on us and turn upside down.
Yeah.
And now we need to take it back.
Yeah, because they're supposed to answer to us. We're not supposed to be the ones answering to them.
Yeah.
They set it up where they gave the federal government their powers. They said, okay, this is your powers. This is what you got. And everything else will be left up to the states, and then it will be left to the people, and the people are left really with the majority of that power,
Yeah. But, I think that a lot of people think, what can I do? How can I make a difference? And the truth is, we've got the answer. when the country was brand new, the second president signed the Sedition Act. Almost lost that word for a minute. The Sedition Act, and the Sedition Act made it illegal to talk badly about the government. But the crazy thing is, the Bill of Rights, the ink wasn't hardly wet or hardly dry on it. So we had the First Amendment that said you can speak freely, and we had Sedition Act that said don't you dare. Well, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, James Madison, who wrote the first draft of the Constitution, they both said that the rightful remedy is state nullification. Said that the states can say no, and we have the power to do that because the states have power over the federal government.
Yeah.
And here's something that's really interesting. Everybody hates Justice Roberts because he's the one that brought us Obamacare in its current form.
Yeah.
But he wrote something in his decision that is really cool. He said that the states are sovereign entities, and the time has come for them to start acting like it. So he, in essence, has told us that what Jefferson and Madison said is true, and that the states have the power. I don't think Roberts liked Obamacare. I think he was just kind of stuck with his interpretation of what was constitutional.
Yeah. Well, and he originally voted against it. It was like 5-10 minutes before the decision that he changed his vote.
Yeah.
And Justice Kennedy, he actually wrote, I guess, the majority opinion, basically them stating why they voted it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then all suddenly a new one was written by Roberts because he changed his vote. And Justice Kennedy said that there was outside pressure on Roberts to change his vote. Now, he didn't tell us who was pressuring him, but...
Well, I think there was, and that's what I'm saying. I think he was kind of stuck. I don't know how that all works, but corruption is rampant. But he slipped that in there, and he told the states, he told Idaho, you can stop this thing. You are sovereign. You have the power to do it. And all we have to do is listen to his hint, compare that with Madison and Jefferson's directions, and say no. And the thing is, that is troubling to me, is there are states that are saying no. Indiana just said, forget it, Common Core's out.
Yeah.
Why haven't we?
We need, there's too many, I don't know, too much corruption, in Boise, and too much. I think where the money's coming from probably has a lot to do with it.
Well, I think there's too little spine in Boise.
That's true. There's a lot of weak, seems like there's too many weak politicians all over the place. They just don't stand in it for anything. That's why I like you.
Well, thank you. But I got to tell you, I hate politicians.
Yeah.
My biggest fear is that I'll win and then I'll have to hate myself. But I've made a commitment. Ultimately, I think it comes down to money. Blue Cross, they're coming in and they're paying a lot of money to politicians. So the politicians will keep Obamacare and keep abortion and keep all of these kind of crazy things in the mix. And so I have already committed. I'm a private businessman. I'm not a politician. I don't want to be a politician. You put me in office, all special interest money that comes my way, because I would take every dollar. But when it comes my way, it will go right back out the door as donations to Idaho Chooses Life, Pocatello Tea Party. I don't know who, but it's going to go out to organizations that I believe in. None will find my pocket. Because the truth is, the second I accept that money, I'm beholden to somebody.
Yeah.
And that's BS. I'm either going to, if I can't defend the state, I'm just not going to play. And so,
yeah. I think the better way for it to work is if people are paying you because they agreed with you, rather than trying to influence you to contradict your principles.
Yeah. You're right. But honestly, the best solution is that our people go into the legislature for one reason only, and that's to serve Idaho. And the state pays huge money if you're a legislator. It's all of $16,000 a year. But you know what? That's all I'm going to take.
Yeah.
That's all I will take, and then nobody can say, well, Lance Earl got bought off here, he got bought off there. That means if the time comes that I should be reelected, I won't have a war chest. I'll be competing against those that do have a war chest. But by that time, since we will make a press release every time we donate money and pass that stuff back on, hopefully my constituents will recognize the fact that Lance Earl doesn't take special interest money. He just goes there and fights.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a powerful message. You know, that's a message we got to get out there to people, and hopefully people watching the show, you know, are hearing that, because, you know, we need more of that, you know. I feel, and as far as the governor goes, I actually mailed him I actually sent him an email about that state exchange business, and
Yeah?
I told him, I said, why don't we nullify this thing? I said, South Carolina's nullifying it, you know, all these other states are nullifying it. I said, why don't we do that?
Did you get an answer?
No answer. But I also gave him another suggestion, because these guys that support the state exchange, they say, oh, we just have different tactics of going after Obamacare than you guys do.
They're not going after Obamacare.
Oh, that's what I mean.
They're going after the money. You got to know that.
Yeah, but that's what I basically said. I said, show me. If you're going to go after Obamacare, why don't you
plan?
prove it? And I basically gave them an idea. It was just an idea. I don't know if it's the greatest idea, but I just said, you know, why don't you do this? You know, at least you'd be fighting it. You know, you'd be doing what you guys say you're going to do, you know.
Yeah.
And basically what I told them is I said that Obamacare is full of loopholes. That there's tons of loopholes in there. In fact, recently I found out there's a loophole where you could get around the individual mandate.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that. In fact, Obama, another executive order, just today I saw. He changed the deadline from March 31st, and this is the craziest one yet. There's no cutoff date. He says, oh, somewhere in the middle of April.
Yeah.
Now, what in the world does somewhere in the middle mean? You know, is that the 15th, the 18th? I don't know.
Yeah, but I basically tell them, I said, why don't we exploit that? Why don't we pass legislation that exploits those loopholes, where we're actually using those loopholes to get around the law? I said we could use Obamacare as a weapon against itself.
Sure,
I mean,
we
that's
could.
how flawed the law is. I said, if you wanted a different tactic of going after the law, why don't you do that?
Well,
Why don't you actually at least show that you're fighting it rather than just going along with it?
yeah, well, here's the thing. You know, if the state government could think through even the tiniest problems, we'd have good solutions. Now, I'll just give you one for example. The federal government pushed wolves on us. Now, isn't that a good idea? Our grandparents, for years and years, did everything to exterminate every wolf because they're problems. Now we're having problems. There's depredation, and I saw in the newspaper just today or yesterday that they've earmarked almost $500,000 to go out and take care of this wolf problem. So there's $500,000, $400,000 I think it was, $400,000 of state money going out to take care of wolves. But you think through it. What if instead we offered special extended hunting permits? Now you have somebody buying a permit, that's a little bit of income coming to the state, and you know, don't you think we have enough hunters in the state that would love to go out and take care of that problem instead of spending $400,000 to do that? So,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean that you know, I'm sorry, but that is the simplest. I mean, there is just no way to make that a complicated or difficult problem to solve. But our state can't figure it out without throwing your money and mine at it.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Well, it seems like that's what the government's good at. They're good at taking simple things and making them complicated.
I'm afraid so.
Which is what we gotta fix. We gotta streamline government and reduce it and make it simpler and smarter and obviously smaller, you know, where it's constitutional.
Yeah.
You know, and states, we need to stand up. States have states' rights. And we've kind of ceded too many of those states' rights to the federal government. And really, we need to take those rights back. We need to say, these are ours. The Constitution delegates them to us. And we're gonna be bold, and we're gonna act on the authority that we have.
Well, you know, it's kind of crazy. They've taken so much power. You know, I mentioned that I live on 80 acres and we've got nothing but farms around us, and we have literally shot coyotes out our front door. Now, you know, if a coyote stays out there and chases mice and rabbits and does what coyotes are supposed to do, that's fine. But when they come in and they're hanging out in my front yard, now they're after cats and dogs and domestic animals. And we need cats at our place because without cats we're invaded by mice. So, but you know, the crazy thing is the state government tells me that I don't have any right. They say those coyotes belong to the state. And I say, you put a coyote in my front yard, he's hunting my cats. Now I own that sucker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, this is just a simple example of the state's taking too much power. It's my property. I pay taxes on it. The coyote's causing problems. I will do what I need to do, and I have the right to do that as a property owner.
Yeah.
You would think.
Do you think that Kelly Packer is doing her job as the legislature?
Okay, well, let's take a look. Kelly Packer voted to bring us the state exchange, and last year when it became evident that the state exchange was coming, a group called Idaho Chooses Life brought forward an amendment to that. Now, this amendment was pretty simple. There's a new kind of abortion. It's called medical abortion. A woman swallows a pill, her body, pushes the baby out. And one of the problems is these drugs can be bought online in some states. And so people are buying these drugs, they're sharing them with their friends and their neighbors and their sisters. We have no idea how many babies are being killed with this.
Yeah.
So this amendment, all it did was it gave people who purchase insurance the right to include or exclude coverage for medical abortions. It didn't force anybody to do anything. It just gave them choice, like freedom and liberty and all that other stuff that we can't allow. It gave people the choice to choose to include or exclude. And Packer, along with a lot of other legislators, blocked this. And, when I'm in Boise, if there's anything that comes forward that offers the people of Idaho more freedom, I'm going to fight for that. And I can't understand why she would do that. Secondly, she didn't bring us Common Core. That was brought to us by a committee.
Yeah.
But the thing is, where is her voice? Why isn't she screaming at the top of her lungs to remove this? Because it's not constitutional. And my basic opinion of Kelly Packer is that she is far too silent on everything that matters. She needs to step up and she needs to fight against these things. I looked at her scorecard from, I don't know, I can't remember the website. It's Liberty, Google Idaho Freedom Index, and you'll find it.
Okay, I've heard of that, and I've looked at some people on there before.
Well, this is her report card for the last legislative season, according to this conservative group. And I can tell you this, as a young man going to school, when I brought home report cards that looked like this, I got my butt whipped. Because on this report card, red is bad and green is good, and hers is redder than red. And she's just not clinging to conservative principles.
Yeah, and that's really too bad. We need to get tougher people there. It's too bad.
It is, because honestly, I'd rather step out and just let her go do a good job. But she hasn't done that for us.
No, so got to do what we got to do. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm actually glad to see that you're involved, though, because most people need to get involved. Too many people, when they hear, politics or whatever it is, they just kind of, they shut it out and ignore it, and they don't really want to know. But in the meantime, they're losing their freedoms when they do that.